Auraki mai, welcome back. Parliament is set to consider a members' bill which could lower the voting age to 16, enable Māori to switch electoral rolls at any time and give all prisoners the right to vote. The Electoral Strengthening Democracy Amendment Bill is sponsored by Green MP Golriz Ghahraman, who joins us now live from Wellington from Parliament. Golriz, tēnā koe, thank you for joining us this morning. There's a lot going on in this bill. In fact, it's a grab bag of issues. Why 7 areas all at one time?
Well, we have a democracy that we rightly should be very proud of here in New Zealand. We know that we were the first nation to give women the vote, for example, but there's been all of these different recommendations. Different courts have told us we're breaching various constituent rights, and successive governments have neglected to pick up electoral reform. So what I wanted to do is to bring all of those things together that the Electoral Commission has told us we need to do, the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeal, and say actually it's time to take politics out of that.
But doing it this way is taking a risk though, Golriz. I mean, it means if there's one part of this bill that none of the rest of the MPs agree with, it can be voted out straight away. Well, the idea is that, and this is what I would absolutely hope that will happen in terms of the House coming together across the aisles, is that it should go to select committee so that New Zealand can have this conversation, so we can hear from the different groups that are impacted by the failure to reform electoral laws for so long. And once we've had that conversation, we'll see, we'll go from there. If you could choose one of the 7, which would it be? Which one is most important to you?
I can't do it. I mean, there's the piece around electoral funding. So we do need to get big money, for example, out of our democracy. We've seen elsewhere in the world that climate action has been stifled by the interests of big oil, for example, being in various democracies. But then we have 16 and 17-year-olds who we know have their Bill of Rights Act rights breached by the failure to give them a say in their future, and we're making policy that's going to impact them, their lives for far longer than anyone else.
That's right.
It's hard to pick.
Yeah, you want to extend the voting age to 16 and 17-year-olds, but in 2020, a third of eligible rangatahi didn't want to vote, and so the question is, why push for more of them to be able to?
Well, that's right, and actually that's a key reason that we want to extend the right to vote. We know that if people are enrolled to vote, that they become lifetime voters, and so getting kids while they're at school, so while they're say 15, to do their civics education, to find out about the electoral system, and while they're all together, because once they leave, people go to uni, people go to work, and they disperse, and it's harder to reach people. They enrol. They've got their group together, they've got their teacher, and once they're enrolled, we will see a rise in youth engagement.
Golriz, let's talk about civics education. Why not push that first? Aren't you just putting the cart before the horse in terms of pushing for the voting age to come down? Push for civics education. Why not do that first?
Well, we are doing that. So we have been that's been a very strong part of Green Kaupapa for a long time, and we're getting a lot of traction on that. But the thing that we do know about 16 and 17-year-olds is that they have a right to vote in the New Zealand Bill of Rights Act. The courts have told us we're breaching that right. They can leave school, they can work, they pay taxes, and they actually are a very engaged group in other ways. So we've seen the school climate strikes, we've seen young people turn out in various ways for various issues, but they don't have this one right, and it's just one vote.
Golriz, you want to lower the threshold for entering Parliament to 4%, from 5% to 4% of the vote. Could this risk allowing radical fringe parties to enter?
So that recommendation comes out of the suite of changes that the Electoral Commission recommended to strengthen MMP. What we've done with this bill is to say actually all of those changes need to come in together, and that's part of depoliticising electoral reform. The Electoral Commission felt that 5% was too high to allow for what MMPs meant for, which is to allow a diversity of different views and different political parties. But with that, they said that the electorate entry, where all you have to do is win one electorate, for example, and that can be done with a 0.5% of the vote, should be axed, basically. That was undemocratic, but we could then lower the threshold. So actually, the bigger risk is the electorate threshold. One electorate, and we've seen this happen before with 0.5% of the total vote, could get in a radical.
Yeah, but would you be
easily.
comfortable if your law change led to, say, anti-mandate protesters being voted into Parliament?
Well, we do have a democracy, and if people can actually get their voice up, and I don't think that would happen. I don't think 4% of New Zealand would turn out to vote for such a radical view. But having said that, again, it's easier with the electorate entry where you need far less of the vote to get through. So that's what the Electoral Commission considered, and weighing that up, they said in order to preserve a diversity of views being able to come in, but not a fringe or a very unrepresentative candidate or party coming in, that was the balance there. Get rid of electorate entry and coattailing, but lower the threshold.
Thank you very much for your time and for joining us this morning. Green MP Golriz Ghahraman, tēnā koe.